For more on what's going on, we have Alex Avery, a real estate analyst and author of The Wealthy Renter. So now, Alex, what are some of the trends behind this big number?
Yeah, certainly there is more renovation spending going on in Canada, and I think if you look across a number of different factors, you can see what's going on. People are finding it increasingly expensive to buy homes, to transact on homes. Land transfer taxes are higher than they were a decade ago. The actual transaction fees that you pay to an agent are higher because house prices are higher. So it's becoming increasingly more expensive to move, and as that happens, you start to weigh the cost-benefit analysis of moving versus renovating, and that land transfer tax and agent fee you can look at as the free first portion of a renovation. So you're seeing a lot more people renovating for that reason. And that usually comes as a result of a house not fitting the needs of the person who's living there. But there are other reasons as well. I mean, when it really comes down to it, renovation spending isn't so much of an investment in financial gains as it is so much an investment in your lifestyle. And people like to do that kind of stuff, spend money that, makes their house nicer, makes their car nicer, whatever they're spending the money on to enjoy their life more. And when you look at the alternatives, it's increasingly challenging to argue that that's not a good idea. I don't happen to think it's a great idea, but when you have interest rates as low as they are, bank balances are paying zero, people are looking at it saying, my money's just sitting there doing nothing anyway. If it was generating a 10% yield, maybe people would be putting more money aside.
Right. Now, when you mentioned, though, the cost of these renovations, and do people have that money? I mean, we've seen the huge popularity of these homeowners equity line of credit. Is that the way people should finance renovations?
I don't think so. I think there are a lot of different ways that people do. They bootstrap, and one of the I think drivers behind that is that they believe that it's an investment. And in fact, when you talk to a lot of people in the real estate industry, they'll tell you that the best bang for your buck comes from renovations in your kitchen or in your bathroom. That's very biased advice usually. It does happen to correspond directly with the two most expensive rooms in your house. So when you ask a contractor where you should spend your dollars, they're going to say kitchen and bathroom because the ticket is going to be larger. But as you noted in the intro, the average ticket for a renovation is going down, and I think that also reflects the increasingly expensive cost of housing in Canada today. And as people are getting further and further stretched, I think that trend is likely to continue. You'll continue to see more and more spending on housing, but on an individual basis, I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to decline.
There's lots of talk right now that the Bank of Canada is going to raise interest rates. July 12th, I guess, is the date that they'll be announcing this. Some people think it might come later, October, but it seems as though there's a lot of people saying it's coming sooner rather than later. How does that play into the decision of whether or not to renovate?
Well, it's interesting because there's been a lot of debate about whether interest rates are the driver of these high house prices. In my experience, people spend as much on housing as they need to spend on housing. And so while a higher interest rate corresponds to a higher payment, I'm not sure that will immediately slow down demand. And when you look at other factors, I mean, the government is involved in many different parts of the housing market, whether it's, controlling interest rates through the overnight rate or land transfer tax, property tax, the absence of capital gains tax. There are all sorts of incentives and ways that the government influences the housing market. And I'm not sure that higher interest rates will have an immediate impact. For one thing, a lot of people have fixed rate mortgages. For another, when you look at mortgage payments today, the majority of those payments or more of those payments are principal than you've seen at any point in the last 25 years, simply because interest rates are so low.
But is a renovation always going to be a good investment?
I would say it's generally not a good investment. When you put $100 into your kitchen and you turn around and sell it 3 years later, you're probably going to get about 80 cents back. And if you do happen to renovate and then flip it immediately, it's very difficult to make that a profitable investment as well, simply because there's a lot of costs that an individual has to bear that perhaps a contractor might not, or a home builder. So when you're doing it on a retail basis, an individual renovating their own home, home, they end up paying a lot of money for the services and for the materials. And so generally speaking, the returns are negative on renovation from a purely financial perspective. But if you want to enjoy your kitchen more and you think it's going to make your life happier, and you plan to live there for 10, 15, 20 years, then by all means. I mean,
go for it.
A nice home is a nice home.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Alex Avery is a real estate analyst and the author of The Wealthy Renter.